You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A radiant creator isn't making a living, they are living.
Sometimes it's a little bit challenging to interview a person, as in it's challenging in a fun way. You're doing a lot, you've done a lot, so you can probably do the best intro for who you are and what you're about. So who's Kate Hart, the radical gardener?
Well, as anybody, on the planet, my life is just where I'm at today. My life is just a culmination of all those things of what I'm doing now. But what I'm doing now is I work with therapeutic sound. I work with it in a way that I think is really unique, and then I'm real passionate about gardening, and it's more about. I love that it makes the planet a better place, that I'm growing things, but it's more about me finding my own mythology, being connected to the earth, and how important it is for me, and what that means for me as just as a human being, and to move forward, to evolve. And it's all about connection to the earth and plants and all of that in a very profound way. But the way I started out had nothing to do with this, I thought at the time. I always wanted to live in the country, but I lived in downtown Detroit. Once I was 18, I was out on my own. I was anywhere but the country. For my personality, really suited me. It was a really edgy place, and I loved it. Everybody had opinions. Everybody was very strong-willed. It was a great place for me. And I performed as a singer, and I went through a lot of different forms of music. I started out in blues, but then there was really nowhere to sing that, and then I ended up doing some other things, and which was a very long road, but around 1977, I left Detroit and I went out to Seattle. As difficult as that place was, it served me really well as a musician. And I really found my musical voice in that. So I'm known as a blues singer, probably not so much anymore because I'm not really out there doing it. But I spent 40 years, most of it as a blues singer, touring and producing blues festivals. I produced the Winthrop Blues Festival. If you lived in Seattle, you probably know about that festival. I was one of the jurors on Bumper Shoot. I was really involved in music production and singing. But there was an inner voice that was so loud about me getting out of there. I was really fed up with it. I'd been fed up with it for a long time, but I was doing well. I had a play that was running. I was, so I came to Detroit in 2002, and honest to God, it was the most perfect move I could have made. And I put a group together, did really well. And around 2007, I'd had enough. And what had brought me to that, and this is going to lead to therapeutic sound, what brought me to that is I was teaching a lot. And I had developed this technique where I could connect people to their core voice within minutes. And when I saw the shift, especially in young girls, but really in everybody, people in their 70s, when they would connect to their core voice, there would be this fundamental shift just in how they led their lives, how they perceived themselves, the decisions they made. And I went, what the heck? Even though I stood next to some of the best singers in the world, even though I understood how great singing was, I didn't get really what it could do. So I'm the gal that loves to go down the rabbit hole, and that's where I went. And I ended up reading a lot about Pythagoras, who was the first sound healer, we think, but just a lot of that. And so it drew me into therapeutic sound. Now, if you want me to keep on with that story, I will, because that's where I think it gets interesting.
Yeah, definitely. The therapeutic sound is definitely something we want to focus on.
Okay. So when I I understood what was happening, and I was working, okay, chakras, where everybody else goes, okay? And then I came across these long sets of numbers. There were like, I think 12 numbers, and there was 12 of them. And in this very old book, thousands of years old, and it was a copy of it. And I saw that. I was reading it out loud to my husband, and I saw it and went, oh my God, that's something. I don't know what it is, but it's something. It's really important. And so I became obsessed, and I needed a tone generator that you just froze up. Oh, there you are. I needed a tone generator that would take that long set of numbers. Okay. So I was on a mission, to find that. Anyways, that was interesting because I ended up through a friend named Chris who had just connected, and Chris was very successful in the music business. He's in LA, and I went to high school with him. And he has a studio, and he knew the scientist and had been working with him that had recorded the sounds from the Hubble telescope. And so he knew that guy knew where the tone generator was. So I talked to him, and then the company that had it, his name was Chris, gets really freaky. And then I had to have a studio here that was real high-end studio that would sign for the equipment so I could bring it here. And his name was Chris. And I kept going, is this Chris, Christ consciousness? What is, it was just crazy, right? And I'm not that woo-woo, I'm woo-woo, but so anyways, we got the tone generator here. And as soon as we plugged those tones in, things would start happening. Our sinuses would start draining. So we came to find out that each set of those numbers ruled a major system in the body, like your circulation and, lymphatics, all of that. Okay. So then I thought I should add up all these numbers. What do they add up to? 360, which is just nuts, circumference of circle, the earth, whatever, so there were all these little signs, and that music is called transformation. So I knew that was powerful, and people that would listen to it would have major shifts and what have you. But what I did differently is the tones I could sing, because there were tones so high you couldn't hear them and tones so low you couldn't hear them, but I still put them on because I know you can feel them. And so I sang all those tones, and I sang every one of them 12 times, because somewhere in my mind, I thought we need to have a deep field of harmonics. I understood how important harmonics are. So I did that. So most of it is done with the human voice and acoustic instruments, or Tibetan throat singing, which I do too. Okay. So then I went further, and I wanted to compose music that really had that could create coherence in the body, which is really important for the body to heal. So I worked on that for a year. That's called Psionic 3. And that's the one that was tested, that we tested on 30 people, and the coherence was as high as 90%. But what was different about that is I used an earth resonant scale, and I got that through the math of taking I always have a hard time talking about this because I just do things and I don't really talk about them.
Oh, I get it.
Okay, but I took the 7.83, the resonance of the earth, the Schumann resonance, and did the math to create a musical scale out of that. And that's what I used. And if you tune that scale, it's actually 450, which 4 and 5 is 9. That's like great. That's the best, right? That's the number of completion. And what I came to find out is a lot of East Indian instruments are tuned to that So I came to that after I had done that music. But I once again sang all of those tones 12 times. It's powerful. If you listen to it, you heal. I mean, my experience and a lot of people's experience. So I worked with a colleague, Dr. Snell. She's brilliant, and we tested it. And we did it with yep. Oh, we tested it, and this stuff can now be, it can be, what do you call it?
Verified, tested.
Yes, it can be validated. So anyways, and I had gone to her and just said in passing, boy, I'd really like to prove that this music actually heals. She goes, I can do that for you. And we were off and running. So when we're saying that we're creating 90% coherence, with every cell has a sympathetic and a parasympathetic, right? Energy that goes to it, every single cell. So what you want is you want to be balanced. You want the parasympathetic and the sympathetic to be in balance. So when we say the body is coherent, that's what we mean. Now you can get coherence from meditating, you can get coherence from walking through nature, but it takes a lot more effort. This you just put on headphones. It's easy. And even with that, a lot of people just don't do it. But I have people now that use it. If they get headaches, they listen to it, their headache goes away. If they have trouble sleeping, they listen to it, they go to sleep, So it just creates a coherent state so the body can heal. I don't know if we heal people, but we give the body the tools so that it can heal itself. And that's all the body's ever doing is healing itself. You're just giving it the information so that it can do that. So here I started out as a blues singer, just trying to get a gig. And here I am, almost 70 years old. And I'm working in therapeutic sound. I mean, nobody could have told me this is where I would have ended up.
Well, that's when life is exciting, when you are where you never thought you'd end up. I mean, what's predictable is not that rewarding. It's not that fun. It's what's unpredictable when you end up doing something that you never would have imagined, living somewhere you never would have imagined, doing something you never would have imagined. It seems like that's, to me, a sign of success, more so than planning.
Yeah, well, I was really lucky because I grew up with a mother who was a traditional astrologer. There's only like 100 astrologers at any one time in the world. It's a very difficult way of doing astrology. It's very accurate. But my mother used to say things to me that I really took in. And one of them is, she would always say, "What are you worried about? You just haven't gotten there yet." So I really never had a lot of expectations. I mean, it's almost impossible in this world not to have any expectations, but, I know to reel myself in. So, the only thing I was really asking from the universe is just let me have my own garden. I've been touring for 40 years. You're so far away from having a garden, that it just doesn't seem like that's ever going to happen. And I thought it'd be really great if I have a garden that was on the water. And that's exactly what happened for me when I got on music. We ended up living on an island for 8 years, and I had 18 raised beds and a produce stand, and I lived on an island. So, it did happen, but it was definitely going to happen in its own time. But I didn't ask for much.
Just a good life, the life that you want to live, the way you want to live it. So you mentioned on one of your YouTubes recently, I think you said that you've got a new book coming out. We Are Not Good Girls.
Yeah, this is anything but therapeutic sound. In a way, it's about when I was out on the road with 5 other women singers. It's a group. I put a group together in Seattle called Seattle Women. Then when I came to Detroit, I put together a group called Detroit Women. I also had Kate Hart and the Blue Stars. I've had a lot of different things I've done, but those were the concert bands. Those are the ones that toured. Those are the ones that really did well. And that, that started in the early 80s when we were all still crazy, running around, drinking, doing what you do. And I was with some women that were real powerhouses. I mean, these were not punky women, let me tell you. Kathy McDonald, who's, toured with the Rolling Stones and Elton John, and she took Janis Joplin's place. And these singers were really, really, really strong. They're strong personalities. So being in charge of that wild bunch, though it was the most difficult thing I ever did, it really helped to define who I am. And I understood when I look back at it, especially when I wrote the book. And I wrote the book quite a while ago, but I haven't done anything about it until now. But when I was writing the book, I realized, wow, those women really helped to define who I am today. And I can see now I was really the only one that could have done that. But, because you really get beat up when you're a band leader, you're just going to get beat up. When you're a band leader and there's like 8 other people in the band, that can be really interesting. So, yeah, that's what it's about. And I wanted to share it. I think those women, a few of those women are no longer with us. They did live really wild lives. And, I believe I owe it to them, even though it's written as fiction. It's still about that whole scenario.
And that's going to be available soon?
Probably within a couple of weeks. Yeah.
We'll definitely link that in the show notes. Well, so you lived in Seattle for a while, and that's an interesting city because I've known so many people who went there and they sharpened their sword. They became more of who they are. They did some great artistic expression. They saw life in unique ways, and they all seem to have eventually migrated away, usually frustrated with Seattle, but with a sharper will, a sharper sword in life, you could say. They seem to know what they wanted to do, or definitely were on a new path that was much more powerful than when they got to that city.
Yeah, when I left Detroit, I said, I'm just going to drive till the water stops me. And that's pretty much what happened. But it was, I hate that town. Sorry. But it was worthwhile being there. The friends I made, like I said, I had that group. We did really well. It wasn't like I was suffering, but I really wasn't who I was always a little bit less than who I am because it is so riddled with political correctness. And, if you even give people a review on a movie that you saw, they think you're angry. It's just the most absurd place. But for some reason I was there and, I met my husband there. I could, go to all the wonderful reasons, but I was leaving Detroit to find who I really was. And I guess being in those adverse, scenarios, that's how you do it, and, but, it's the crab in the pot. Honestly, it's like socialism. It's like, nope, if anybody starts to do well, the crabs pull them down. Like, oh, wait a minute. And I always did well. I would be on juries. I was producing festivals. I had a band that worked all the time, but I worked my butt off, and so as soon as I really, was really cooking, come along, 3 or 4 people and thought maybe I just needed to, not get too big for my britches. Right. So I didn't know how much that was happening till I moved back. And I'll tell you what was key for me. You'll get this. So I'm back in Detroit on the 3rd day. And everywhere I'm going, people are friendly, right? Detroit gets such a bad rap, but it's the Midwest. And people are so freaking friendly here, right? So, you go in the grocery store, the woman who's like, she looks like she's going to die any minute. She's been slugging away. She's probably got 10 kids at home. And she's being friendly. I go in a cupcake shop in Seattle and the woman is so depressed. I'll never forget that. And I asked this woman, the cupcake shop, I said, how can you be depressed? You're around cupcakes all day. So anyways, so we went into a bar one night and we're listening to a band and this guy sitting next to me, strangers never talk to you in bars in Seattle. They just didn't. So this guy turned to me and he said, "So what high school did you go to?" And I thought, I couldn't stop laughing. And it's like, that is Detroit. Detroit thinks like that. What high school? What neighborhood you in? I thought, oh my God, I'm home. I'm home. And I just thrived when I got back here. I thought, wow, I really like who I am. This is great. Not that I didn't like who I was, but it was like, wow, this people want you to be strong. They want you to have opinions. And it was just a whole different ball game, as you know.
Well, so you ended up there, you drove west, so you hit the ocean, and your quest was to find out, who am I? And it's great because so many people really want to, ride into bliss on a dolphin or a unicorn, finding out who they are,
Right.
and
Right.
it really doesn't work. And those who think that they have are just the most delusional, ridiculous people ever. And so
they're always angry. They're always angry.
Always angry, yeah. So you kind of went right into that forge and just got hammered on to figure out who you are. So that's just the altruism of the soul. Like, you really meant it. So the universe said, "Oh, you want to know who you are? Well, to know that, you have to know really what you are not. So we're going to put you right in there." And something that you seem to have left Seattle with, maybe you cultivated it there. It's something you mentioned in one of your YouTubes. Political correctness strips away the integrity of anything that is unfortunate enough to encounter it. And it seems like we are in an extreme time where that is the case. But could that be helping people figure out who they really are this time? Seattle has spread?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I am completely exhilarated by what's going on because it's all out there now, right? And we're, and I really count myself as a card-carrying member of the truther movement. I love what's happening. I mean, we have come together in a way I've never seen, and I'm almost 70. This is so exciting. And, we're not demanding political correctness from each other within this truther movement. We're being incredibly kind. I mean, considering how many of us there are, how many strong personalities there are, it's amazing. We gravitate to what we feel is the truth, and that's what we join in on. So it had to happen this way. That's the only way things can happen, is the pendulum goes so far out of whack. And we got it in time. And I know that, listen, nothing happens unless we as a collective have decided that that's what we want to happen. So we are not victims here in any way. We have all had this, I believe that when I came here, I understood what my work was. I might not remember making that agreement, but I'm certainly doing it. And we all did. And so even if it's the person who you think is a complete idiot, which maybe they are, they're playing their role out too. But the pendulum is swinging back. And that's why, when you get into the singularity duality, it is actually really important right now that we are in duality. We'll get back to singularity soon enough, but we need to choose sides right now. And because there's a lot of evil and a lot of, going on the planet, and we have to choose a side. I mean, we're warriors. We better understand we're warriors. And you can be a warrior by carrying a sword, or you can be one by being on social media and expressing your opinion. You can be it in 100 different ways. You can do it through your art. You can do it through having a YouTube channel, whatever it is. But we're warriors, and this could not have happened unless things were getting so far out of whack. And then, if we can see within that duality that we're all just human beings playing our part, there is where the singularity lives. And we'll get back to it. We'll get back to where we're on track, and we all want the best for all of us. But what's going on now, it's so absurd that it's absolutely hilarious. I mean, I find humor every day in what goes on. So, and maybe Seattle. I found Seattle hilarious. I laughed all the time. I didn't walk around pissed off all the time. I go, oh my God, what are these people thinking? Right? I mean, every time they make some decision, I mean, that waterfront and digging that tunnel, I just, these people are on drugs. I mean, it was just, to me, it's hilarious. I always find the humor in it. So I don't walk around all depressed, Where I do find it really difficult to navigate is what's happening to the children. That is really difficult. It's difficult for all of us. And that's where being warriors comes in. But for the rest of it,
The duality is very real right now, and it does seem like, battle lines have been drawn, but being a person who's, you can call it a truther, also it seems like most people who are truthers are also interested in their own self-awareness. They usually have a spiritual nature to them.
Yeah.
So really being a truther and being self-aware, it's just a path. I tend to call it being a natural human, one who's awakening to their natural human instincts, because I think that humans are profound instinctual and intuitional machines. I mean, we all came from somebody who knew there was a lion hiding around that tree. So our lineage is pretty tough. And it seems like we're getting back into that right now with the battle lines, you could say, being drawn. So really, as a truther, as a self-aware person, would you say that it's not so much that we're interested in a battle, more than just as truthfully as possible, just being ourselves and letting that resonate? That's really the only force we can use.
I guess I just don't go there with it, because I guess I wear that like a second skin. I'm somebody that I'm brutally honest about who I am. I mean, you'll see that in We Are Not Good Girls when you read it. I mean, the person I'm ratting on the most is me. So I mean, I call myself out all the time. I do it with love. I do it with humor. But so I was blessed with awareness. That's a gift. I don't know if you could teach anybody to be aware. I think that comes through, evolution and, what happens around them. But a lot of people are not self-aware. I mean, you can just know that by standing in line and seeing somebody standing in front of you and is completely unaware there's a line behind them. I mean, so that, but I'm always aware. I was like, God, there's somebody that's in a hurry. Let me get out of the way. I'm always aware. I have antennas that work. So I don't know what the fix is for that, other than being aware that we need to be more aware.
Oh, and being thankful for awareness. If you were lucky to be somebody who's aware, who has a self-awareness, it often seems that people are either born with it or not, more so than they cultivate it throughout their life. So if you have that unfathomable fortune to be self-aware, then you got to use it in some way. You got to experience it. I mean, definitely one of the best ways to experience is gratitude.
Yeah, and it's it's by just not stating it with this you have to be kind. Okay, so what I mean by that is, if let's say this is going to be a silly example, but let's say, for example, I want to overeat. Okay. And so instead of beating myself up, I go, oh, there I go again. I'm overeating. Boy, oh boy, I'm so funny when I do that. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing an awareness to it, but I'm not being unkind about it, because that sets you back. That goes into negative ego, and that's like nowhere. So I've really learned that in a big way, in a tangible way, by teaching. And I teach people voice, and I teach them voiceover training. So I have a lot of people that come to me, especially in voiceover training, who've never done anything creative. And the first thing I do is get them out of their head, out of the negative ego. And I tell them, everybody's got this little guy on their shoulder that says, oh my God, you're so stupid. What are you doing? You're going to sound so, dumb. Don't do this, and I tell them we're going to kill that. And because it's like going into going into your head alone is like going into a bad neighborhood alone. There's no good information in there, and it's dangerous. And so don't do it. So you want to always be in reactive mode, right? And so you in an intuitive mode. Intuitive mode is a better way of saying it. So through that, you become incredibly aware because you're always in an intuitive place as opposed to a negative ego place, right? And I think everybody should go take an improv classes, whether they're an artist or actor or not, because that would get them out of their head and into their heart, where they're reacting in a healthy way, but they're reacting to what's going on around them with their heart and with their intuition.
I like that. Well, you do voice coaching lessons with people, and something is that correct?
Yes.
And something I saw on your recordings that you have on CD Baby for sale, you have for a male one and then a female one, voice warm up.
Right.
How might those help people if people were interested in just maybe they don't use their voice for a living, but they might like to express themselves better? Would those be a help?
No, I don't think they would. Honestly, a short lesson, a half hour, you can really fix just about anything that's wrong. I mean, I've gotten pretty good at this. And so I just have to listen to someone talk. I have to just watch them, for a little bit, and I can come in, give them the solution, and they're ready to go. It is very easy to connect to the core voice. It's very easy to create a more flexible mechanism. Most of us are tongue-tied. The tips of our tongue don't work. The more that we move this mechanism, the more resonant our voice will become. It is so easy. It's so easy. I'm always blown away when people spend years and years and years and years in vocal training and they still sound like Minnie Mouse, or they're still stuck in their throat, or this is so easy. Yeah.
I like that. So that's something that you offer would actually be sessions where you work on that.
Yeah. And I do a lot of it by Skype. It's actually great doing it by Skype because I can look right at the person. I can see what's going on right away. And it's very, very simple to fix. Very simple. And I always say everybody that does YouTube videos should do at least one session just to clean up their presentation. I mean, if you want people to feel your voice, if you want your voice to be a resonant instrument, then that's the way to go.
Oh, I like that. Well, I will do one of those, and I'll definitely recommend that to people because I know a lot of people who are in broadcasting who are doing Skype, or there's so many different examples where we're broadcasting, where we're sending out a signal, where we're trying to express ourselves, and you've got some blocks, and if somebody can help you with those, phenomenal, because it's really about wanting to get better. And there's something about recording yourself and then hearing it back that is insanely humbling. You can learn about yourself just listening to yourself record it.
Right, exactly. Right. And connecting to your core voice, that's just been a lost art. That's something they use I'm sure they still do if you're especially if you're in England and you're studying the classics and Shakespeare, they're still very, plugged into the fact that they really need to have a voice that carries and is resonant. But what was I going to say? Oh, it's you can't find it in the colleges anymore. So many of the acting studios, it's just completely ignored. Specs Howard is a broadcasting school here. They recommend me all the time to send people over to work on the voice. They don't have anybody there to do it. I've worked with some of the newscasters here in town. Even with all of their experience, they still have real issues. A lot of them, it's breathing. So And again, these are quick fixes because all you're doing is showing people something that is natural and just reminding them of where the voice lives. Again, you never want someone thinking about where it might be. You just show them where it is. So I use mnemonics and different things that just takes them there. And they go, oh, okay, there it is. Now teaching throat singing, that's a little more difficult. Because you're actually teaching people how to basically gargle with air with the style that I do. And so when you take somebody down into their throat, they have a gag reflex. So you have to kind of get through that. But the rest of it's pretty easy.
The throat singing went and saw, I think, I forget the name, I cannot remember it. But we saw some throat singers in live, and it was quite amazing. There's something very root chakra about that depth.
Yeah.
And when you hear them do it, and something that was life-changing for me is I always wanted to hear a Tibetan monk, or it could be Nepalese, just somebody up there in the mountains, actually do Om, Om, and do it. Because when I was quite young, I saw the Joseph Campbell series, The Power of Myth, and they have a video of those monks doing that. And so, sure, you can hear it, but Joseph Campbell, when he was asked by Bill Moyers, what is the meaning of Om? And Joseph Campbell said, you gotta go to Tibet, you gotta go to Nepal, and you have to hear the monks do it, and then you'll know what it means, what it's for. Until then, I don't really have any words for it. And so it was always a dream. I'm going to have to get up there. Anyway, I happened to be in Boulder, Colorado at this neat lecture where there were some monks there. And one of them did the Om, and he didn't have a microphone. And he just kicked it out, and I knew what it was for. And it just shook the whole damn building. It was sublime.
Yeah. Because I have done core voice connection workshops, which are so much fun and so powerful, and they really are life changing for people. But I walk around at first, and I do the Tibetan throat thing, and it's interesting, the feedback I get on that, and what you're really doing is you're literally clearing the room, you're clearing, you're just clearing it, you're grounding everything. It's much like, when you look at the Native Americans and when they're doing, the dances and the chanting or the didgeridoo, these are real low tones, and those are root chakra, those are clearing. So any therapeutic sound session I would start with that Tibetan throat, because that's what's going to really settle things down, it's like clearing the physical crap, and it really is. Would you like me to do it for you?
Oh, sure. Do it. Yes.
Okay. Well, I didn't warm up, so let's see if I choke myself or not.
Yeah, that is it. That is exactly it.
Rock out.
Yeah. Well, I hear a lot of, in, if you're in Sedona, Arizona, and you're, I don't know, at some new agey thing, and they'll always say, let's end this with an Om. And everybody's like, oh, it's you just kind of want to step out and just, I'm done, I'm out.
Yeah. And so, but you know what? That's what we do that in a core voice connection shop. So you connect everyone to their voice first. It's the missing piece. That's why, so I'm going to do sound healing. That you need to be connected to your own voice before you're going to chant something. You've got to be connected to your own voice. That's where the power is. That's where the resonance is, and let's, talk about that fifth chakra. The fifth chakra is the last physical chakra, and then we're moving up, right, into the more ethereal. But this is the stumbling block for everybody because it's supposed to be. It's the most difficult one to pass through or to heal, having your own voice, speaking your truth, connecting to core sound. I mean, it doesn't get bigger than this. This is the stuff I'm passionate about. This is the stuff I knew when I was singing with those singers that were so freaking good, that like we would move people. I mean, 20,000 people would be sobbing because there'd be 6 of us that were singing, real singers, that are singing blues and they're gutsy and like they understand that, the blues is the joy of singing about your pain. And I got to tell you what, most people don't have the guts to do it or to lay it out on the line like that. And that's what the blues is. And so I got to stand next to these women that were connected to their voices. So honestly, how couldn't I have ended up here? I was paying attention. I had to write the book. I was the one paying attention. I was the one that was seeing what was going on around me, how it was affecting me, and sound was always there. It was always sound, even when I was a kid. My mother sang to me when I was in the womb. My mother was a great bluesy singer, but she was a housewife. So I heard it all my life. It was always about sound. We can transition and evolve if we keep connecting to sound. It's key. Don't you think?
Oh, I think so completely. I know that, like, I've on and off played guitar, all of my life and been a little bit of a natural musician. And I've always known that's where my path is. And I know that when the guitars are in the closet and I'm not playing them, there's blocks, something's not right. And when they're out, and that's been one of my struggles for the last couple of years, is to get them back out and get playing. I don't get too hard on myself. I just realize that, if I was fully thriving, I would be playing. So life is wonderful, it's great, but I know that, there's a block there. So in connecting to that sound, however we hear it and express it, you really are connected to your soul, core voice, universe. That's when you are, I think, as alive as you possibly can be. And I'd also add that for some, sound is ultimately it's art. It's, sound is one level of art. And then also with the artistic hand, that is just another tone, another frequency of art. So however you express it, there is some expression which is yours. And I hope that everybody, I guess my wish is that people have some kind of a measurement in their life that shows them where they're at. And I think sound and art is it.
Well, here's what the heartbreaking thing is, that I don't think that we realize how personal our voice is, how personal our sound is. And so that's why when you're growing up, many people, and I see it in the workshops all the time, many people get cut off from their voice because one person said when they were 8 years old, oh, you should never sing. And they never do again. They never do again. What the hell? So don't ever say that to anybody ever for any reason. And I got news for you. Everybody can sing. And it's just about connecting their ear to their voice. And so that it takes time. I mean, I had a guy, he was like a screamo. I'm a contemporary vocal coach, so I get all these singers that no other vocal coach will go because they all want to teach opera or something. But most people want to sing contemporary music. So I had this guy who was like a screamo guy, but you still have to, like not be tone deaf. And he was tone deaf. All tone deaf means is that you don't know where your voice lives in your body. That's all it means. And all you have to do is sit with a piano. And I did it with him. He ended up putting out an album. It took 3 years for him to completely put it all together, come to me once a week. He was really into it. And you just take one note and you go, sing this tone, sing this tone. They'll sing it high, they'll sing it low. You keep go higher, then they'll hit it. And you'll say, now where does that live? And you show them where it is. Like, where is it in their body? Does it they feel it here? Where do they feel it? And then I have all these mnemonics they do, buzzing like a bee, doing like, whoo, doing that, because a lot of men don't even know how to get to a head voice. So it's really about understanding where your voice lives in your body and just training your ear. That's all it is. So no one should ever tell anyone that they can't sing. And who cares if somebody's off key? That is their right to express themselves, right? It makes me crazy because I see what it does. It shuts them down. And you've got to be able to express yourself, because if you shut them down there, they're going to shut down another place. Like a lot of women, and I don't go into this like women versus men very often, but a lot of women are told to quiet down, be quiet. And I always had a loud voice, and I would have this knee-jerk reaction. I would just say, "Plug off! I'm not quieting down. Back away." So I understood in some level, subconscious level, that I bet I was kept quiet in some other lives because I was not having any of it in this one, and I thought no. And even then, with all my bravado, I was still, it would kind of hurt my feelings. I go, hell with this, this is my voice, So it's key. It's really key. And that's why the human voice had to be on the music, because it's the one sound that has real depth of harmonics, and your ear falls in love with harmonics. That's what your ear falls in love with. So nothing's more harmonic than your voice. And then you start stacking your voice. You can just sing the same note and sing it 12 times and listen to what you get back. It sounds like it's celestial. It's incredible. And then the ear falls in love with it, and the ear takes it in. And now the body can incorporate it. Right? So the ear wants to hear it. It craves it. It wants to hear the human voice, and it wants to hear your voice.
And when you're recording, it seems like we've never gotten away from analog completely, and we really shouldn't. And most people who are good producers, good people, running a recording studio, know that if there's not an analog aspect of the recording, it doesn't sound good. Pure digital never sounds good.
Nope. Yeah, and that's the sad thing. I mean, the only way I can really distribute my music is through, a digital really delivery system. But because you'll never get, you get it enough, but it's like you're not getting the full effect of it,
Yeah, if you could experience music completely digitally, we wouldn't have live music. What would the point be? Right. So ultimately, that's important. Well, when you talk about people in their voice and getting stuck in the fifth chakra, the throat, something that I'm confounded by is, and I don't want to point to a big group of people. I know this age group is pretty wide, but millennials, for instance.
So what age is millennials?
Let's just say millennial. Is it like 20 to 30, something like that? Or maybe like, 20 to 25, let's say 20s. How about that? Early 20s especially seems to me what I consider the millennial generation. And I know it spans a bit. I could look it up. But I've been really puzzled by the vocal fry thing, which is so prevalent in that age range. Like I work in an office here, I rent a little office space, and there's a lot of, especially, young ladies here who they all talk like this, like, oh, it's just so, and there's something perverse about it, and it happened very quickly. This started. And I just wonder if you have any insight on this, because it feels like we are, turning off a certain generation by turning off their voice, because I don't believe that's really expression. It seems to me like there's been a blanket put over their expression. Yeah, there is.
And there's a sameness in sound there. And whenever you have a sameness in anything, you're losing, individual identity, the fact that it isn't discouraged when they're being educated, I mean, when they're doing presentations in front of the class or when they're speaking to a teacher, if I was a teacher, I don't care what I was teaching, I go, what are you doing? Talk like a human being, here's where your voice lives. Now let's try that. See if you feel any different. I mean, the fact that it's just, everybody's just putting up with it. I mean, these things don't change until somebody gets called out over and over again, until they go, whoa, wait a minute, what am I doing? So they're standing next to somebody that's doing it, standing next to somebody who do it, who's standing next to somebody who do it. The thing is that, first of all, they really don't know who they are yet. Who knows who they are at 20? I mean, there's a lot of indigos that do, but most people don't, know who they are. And by being in a false voice, boy, that's going to be a longer journey. That's going to be a longer journey. As soon as you get into this resonant place with your own voice, things start changing. You start to listen to things differently. You start hearing them differently. You express yourself differently. It's more complete. Are you there?
Oh, okay, here I am. Okay, yeah, things hung up there for 1 second. Let me make sure everything is still recording. You were just saying complete. Yeah, looks like everything lived through it. Yeah, a little hang up there. But no, it's very true, and it does feel like it's, I like how you mentioned it's just a longer journey to figure out who they are without their own voice, because it's very easy to imitate it. It's funny, like, anybody can imitate, as they call it, vocal fry, and get it like down, like almost instantly, like, oh, it's so, you can do it. Anybody can do it. It's very interesting. And it's also a very lazy way of speaking. Right. It's very lazy.
Absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So, because I teach people how to do commercials, they have to have diction. And just diction in a conversational way. You can't be really proper. I mean, you would sound like an idiot when you're doing commercials. So you have to sound like the guy next door, but you have to be really clear. What I explain to people is the clearer you are when you speak, the more crisp that your diction is, the more intelligent you sound. I mean, you sound intelligent. You don't even have to be intelligent. You'll sound intelligent, right? But chances are you might even get a little smarter, because you're resonating with sound, which opens things up. So who knows, how that triggers the brain. I know for me, the more I pay attention to the way I speak, the more access I have to the information I need.
No, I like that. It makes total sense. Let me look at my little show notes here.
Okay, let me say this though.
Yes.
The ones that are now younger than the ones that are 20 years old, and I'm kind of backing off of my singing teaching. I'm doing more voiceover than the singing. But the young ones I still have, those ones that are from 11 to like 18, boy, they're smart as whips. They know exactly what's going on. That's what people, I'm worried about our young people. I go, don't worry about the young people. They are really getting hip.
What was that age range again?
I teach from 10 to 18 right now. I mean, I've taught all ages, but that's what I have right now.
Gotcha. And I think that would be the generation after the millennials, I think. Yeah. I get confused. Yeah. There's that book, I think, The Fourth Turning, which I did read it. I didn't buy into it completely, but it does make a great case for how there's extreme differences within, actually with each generation. So it wouldn't surprise me if you've got forgive me millennials out there, but a smarter generation or a generation that is more connected, more wise to what's going on than the millennial generation.
Yeah, it's not their fault, though. I mean, they're really indoctrinated. And, and if their parents have bought into the same crap, they don't have a chance, But I mean, the schools are just huge indoctrination centers, right? And, but, for some reason, this new crop of kids isn't buying into it. They're seeing it for what it is. They just want out. They want out of school. They want to get out as fast as they can. And so they're just not buying into the crap. I mean, it's gotten so stupid that you can now see the stupid, which is great. Right? I mean, it's like, wow, I don't think that's probably true. That's just stupid. So that's where it's gone, that you have any common sense left, you can see what's happening.
I like that. It's so obvious. It's
Right.
more obvious than it's ever been.
Than it's ever been.
Yeah, and what happened to their parents is completely obvious because it was so extreme. I've always looked at it like in the last generation or so, and especially right now, I call it empire. That's what I call it. Empire's just gone off the rails. It seems like this is their last chance to make it happen, and the gloves are off, and they have to be obvious because there isn't time to be cunning any longer.
Well, and here, and this is in the defense of, them and everybody and us, is listen, my mother, she was giving me books on the CFR, Committee on Foreign Relations, when I was 15 years old. I grew up knowing stuff, right? My mother was no dummy. But and she was an astrologer, so I already knew there was something more to what I was learning in school. And she thought was religion, the organized religion was just full of it. And, so I was already hearing all that dialogue. And, and I, before all this stuff happened, I read, listened to Art Bell and, Peter Levend. I read his books. I knew that, there was evil in the world, but no one knew to what extent. There's nobody that knew. I mean, no, I don't care how much you were digging for the truth. I didn't know, I mean, I'm going, what? How did I not know that? And it's just coming up every day now. Like, what did they do? What? I mean, we just didn't know. So we really were victims. We really were. Or maybe we weren't even victims. It was just time to not know. And here's what's happening is it's all so obvious now. It's exposed, and that's what it needed to be. So it did have to be that dark and that awful and now we're going, oh wow, and it never has to be that again. It never has to be that again. Now we can, light is exponential, truth is exponential. We're just getting started here.
It is exciting, and yeah, I mean, something talking to you does help me do is to stay positive, because in general I am, but when you're viewing this extreme duality, and if you look at the important thing, I think also is to live our own life and to live our own, find your core voice, express yourself, just do what interests you, find your fellowship and do what interests you, live a good life, because you really have to express yourself. There has to be, because if you look at the media, I'll call it, we can call it the mainstream media, in general, like all you're going to see is the mass degeneracy, you might say. That's all there is to see out there. So what are you doing in here? What is your community doing?
Right. That's right. I love what Mark Taylor. Are you familiar with who Mark Taylor is?
I've heard the name, but I forget.
Oh, well, he's a Christian, but he's not a church Christian. Actually, he's calling out the churches and how many of them have been in league with all this crazy darkness and everything. He's something else, but he's prophetic. And I've been around. I've spent a lot of years, doing shaman studies and mystery school, all that stuff. And I don't say someone is prophetic, and very often. I know many say they are, but he is, and he's the one that wrote the prophecies, Trump prophecies, I think in 2012, and he called all this a long time ago.
Isn't it Mark Taylor?
Mark Taylor,
Okay.
yeah. There's an interview for you. What an amazing man. He's an ex-fireman. And so he got this. He was literally thrown out of bed onto the floor and speaking in tongues, which he'd never done. This guy's a fireman, for God's sake, and he kept trying to write on the floor. But anyways, the reason I brought him up is he just has a great way of putting things, and he calls mainstream media Satan's network, and he says, turn it off. He says the frequency of it. And I thought, damn right, the frequency. He said the frequency of it is Satan's network. He says, and the frequency of that is 440, which is, he called that out. And that's what all of our contemporary music is tuned to, 440. And that was switched over in the 50s. So you wanted at least 420, 460, 450. You always want it to come to a 3, a 6, or a 9, or whatever. You want it to come to where it adds up to threes. But you never want 440, which is an 8, right? So that's a distortion in a frequency that does us no good. And even symphonic music is tuning to 440 now. And that happened in the 50s. And there's a lot of scuttlebutt that the Nazis were playing with that frequency, and then they saw what damage it did, and so they implemented it. And then we took on that tuning as a universal tuning, I believe, in the 50s. I think I have that information right.
Stuart Wilde, a crazy mystic who died a couple years ago. He was in a profound band. He really kind of lost it later in life. He got crazy. But something that he said that always stuck with me was, the mainstream media is the hiss of the snake. That's what he called it. Just great. I love that, the hiss of the snake. And it really is. Well, not sure how much time you have today. We just said an hour, but if you have a little more time, I'd like to talk about gardening, because you are the radical gardener, and you garden, and you have an amazing YouTube channel, and you put out just what you're working on. And I think that, especially if you look at possible big events coming, like a grand solar minimum and such, if we look at, or even just living a better life, having the victory garden that we used to, I really think that there's many aspects to living a good life, to living a natural life, but definitely growing our own food, growing some food, even having houseplants is an essential part of our lives. And so tell us about the radical gardener and really the importance of growing something.
Well, I always said that we need to know what it takes to feed our lazy asses. Once you start growing food and you see all the trials and tribulations just of trying to produce food, which is, pretty much a controlled, scenario, unlike farmers who are on open fields and really victims of the weather. It's really important to connect to that and see what it takes to feed us. You have a mega respect for, how that all works. I live in an urban area, right now. It really suits me. I love it. I'm in a tiny house, 650 square feet. I love this little house. I love it to death. It's the first house I've ever owned, which is sad. I just bought it 3 years ago, and I'm like in my mid 60s. But anyway, and I wanted to prove that you could be fairly sustainable in an urban environment. And so it's been a real learning experience for me. So here I am with your basic backyard, your basic front yard. You have your curb. Maybe you have the side of the house. You have a driveway on the other side. So it's basically it. It's like urban America. But so I just got creative. And, first thing we did is we dug up the whole backyard. There's like no grass anywhere. The last of the grass went a month ago off my curb. There's just no grass. It's all plants. And as much of it as can be edible is. And even in the front yard, which you have to be really careful with that because, for whatever reason, don't get me started. But so I've got plants out there that are beautiful plants. Like rhubarb is gorgeous. It's prehistoric looking and it looks great in the front yard. I have like pots, and they're edible pots. So everything in the pot is edible, and they're beautiful. The flowers are edible. The They have like pussy willows growing up, and then I have peas growing up the center. They're gorgeous, and everything in them is edible. My window boxes, all the plants in there are edible, and even my window wells. You know how you have those kind of steel or plastic things around your windows. Those are all filled up with soil. I'm growing peas in those right now. I have buckets everywhere. I have raised beds in back. And we are building a greenhouse. It's starting next week. I'll be putting that up on my channel as we go through that. There's a lot of gardeners that know way more than I do. I'm really seat of the pants, intuitive gardener. I just do what makes sense, but I've implemented some really special things that are making a difference, especially this year. So I'm just, I plant everything, and it's all in containers or buckets or raised beds, or troughs or whatever things I find on the side of the road. I just grow in everything. And as long as you have good drainage and you have a good soil mixture, and I always go through what that is, then you can pretty much grow anything. Now, what what I talk about on my channel, first of all, I had almost 300 videos, and YouTube took my channel down and took all of my videos. So all my how-to, they were just gone. It was horrible. But so I started a YouTube channel that day, another one. It's Kate Hart, but if you put Kate Hart Radical Gardener, you'll find it. And so I just go through like how-to and just try to drive home to people. It's one plant at a time. That's how life is. It's one thing at a time. Go get one bucket, go get one trough, fill it up with soil. I tell them what the soil is, what the good seeds are, the seeds that are easy to grow, water it. That's all it is. It's one bucket at a time. The same thing I talk about prepping. It's one bag of rice. It's one bag of beans. It's a water filter. You don't have to go crazy here. I take all the fear out of it. I hate channels that fearmonger. I love the people that do them because I know their heart's in the right place, and they're within my community, but I will not play that game. We live in the moment. You can't do anything about next week, next year. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. Forget about that. I'm tired of people telling me it's not going to be safe in the city when I see that's absolute, BS. You don't know. And I've never felt unsafe. It's a waste of time to worry. It's a waste of time to be in fear. And I am emphatic about that on my channel. This is just about doing what you can in the moment. End of story. It's not complicated. So that's how I prep, and I have a storage unit that's close by. I keep some things here. Most of my stuff I don't keep here. I think that's probably pretty smart. I stumbled across resealable buckets. I show people how to fill them up, how to keep their foods fresh. It's really simple. So, and I, people email me all the time. I'm real accessible, oh my God, I don't know what to do. It's, first of all, calm down, get in the moment. What do you have in your cupboards? Let's start there. Do you have a dehydrator? They're cheap. Get one on Amazon if you want. It's just so simple, right? And so that's it. But also for me, and I don't know if I could talk about this and not cry, because whenever I talk about being connected to the earth, it just humbles my soul to a point that's just, but I have to be connected to who I call Earth Sophia. She's my mother, and I know she has a soul, and I have to. She loves us unconditionally. If I hear one more person say the Earth is pissed off at us, I'm going to smack them. I mean, it's our mother loves us unconditionally. Unconditionally, we are her, and she is us, and it's how I found my own myth, my own mythology, is by being connected to my mother, And, my mother in real life was a wonderful woman, but I never felt that connected to her. Not like this. Somewhere in me, it was this mother, and the father was the divine father, the galactic center, or the aeons, or whatever it is, but it was something, some pure form of soul, and it's pretty cold out today. It's 51 degrees and it's got a chill in the air, and I'm in the garden, I'm planting. Lettuce doesn't mind being cold, and those seeds don't mind being cold, and arugula doesn't mind, and Swiss chard doesn't mind. And so I'm out there, and if something dies because it's cold, I'll plant something else. I don't sweat it. So yeah, it's who I am today.
Oh, I like that. And yeah, things that don't mind when it's cold. You got miner's lettuce, you got maize, all those great. Yeah, I think people will be surprised. It's an incredibly good connection to ourselves, to the earth, the universe, to grow things. And yeah, what you're saying rings true to me. I mean, it's our natural state, and it gets addicting. And I think just like finding a person's core voice, they start growing things. It'll just become addicting, and they'll find a greater connection to themselves, others, universe, earth, everything. Truly.
Yeah. Now I've added 2 things to the mix this year. Craig, I gotta tell you, they are just real barn burners. And this is probably not a direction we want to go into too far. And it would be fun to do an interview with him. Is with a colleague of mine, Jeff, who is a homeopath, and he imprints crystals with homeopathic remedies. So he samples the pollutants from the air, like most people know how homeopathics works, but he samples the pollutants in the air and then the EMFs, and then he creates a remedy and he imprints the crystals. And crystals hold water, so that's why the crystals can hold the imprint, okay? And so I buy these cheap little crystals that they're shaped in an arrowhead from crystalgem.com that are $1 a crystal, and just buy bags of them. And I take them over to Jeff, and he's imprinting the ones for any kind of electronic pollutant, the EMFs and that, any atmospheric pollutants. And he's managed to take my psionic, my music, and imprint that. And so I've got those crystals. Now I've got the EMF ones and the what he's named it Ariel, for the atmospheric ones. I have them in all my pots next to all my vines that I'm growing, and I'm planting according to the Rudolf Steiner calendar. And I'm gonna tell you, I've never had everything grow the way it's growing. And it's crappy weather this year. I'm blown away. So we still haven't gotten my psionic one in there. And that's like for coherence and for, the earth resonance. I can't even imagine. So we're doing those next week and putting those in. But this year I followed that Rudolph calendar, Steiner calendar to the letter. And what a difference that is making. Let me show it to you. It's so easy. And there's the cover of it. Can you see it?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. And anyways, it's just a calendar. And then he hasn't been around for a while. Darn it. He just has a calendar, and then he has what times to plant what. So here's the calendar. Not anybody that wants to look at the astrological signs, they're all there. So he's got everything there. But then it's got when to plant what. So this is Eastern Standard Time. And so you just open up your calendar and you go, okay, on Monday from 10 until 2, anything leafy, and you plant it. So it's just dead easy, and it's what a difference it's made. So I'm going to do a controlled test study starting in June, and do the same plant, one with the crystals and with Steiner, and one without, and see what the difference is.
Yeah, Rudolf Steiner was an amazing being that showed up for a little while, and the person ever wants some real mental, intellectual, spiritual gymnastics, read some Rudolf Steiner. Wow. I mean, wow. It truly is more than I can handle. I love it. I love it.
It's like Joseph Campbell. They say, like, you read two sentences, or Joseph Campbell says two sentences, you go, wait. You just have to process it. Like I was just reading, Steiner was talking about how the thinking process is nitrogen filled. I was like, what? Wait, what? I mean, his whole understanding of how the cosmos works and how everything influences everything. What the hell was he plugged into? I mean, I don't know if anybody's come close, maybe, but wow, something else.
And his growing practices as to many who would see them as crazy, where you're filling cow horns with cow poop, and you're burying them on the solstice facing, or the other one, and you're facing them up, and then you're mixing that for an hour one direction and the other direction in spring water in a wooden bucket, and so you're doing all these preps. Well, the thing is, some of the more farmers do it than many may think. It sounds so eclectic, but yet it does take place in this world. And a great place to learn about that is Secret Life of Plants, and then you go on to Secrets of the Soil. They talk a lot about biodynamics, and something I'd recommend people try if they wonder if Rudolf Steiner was for real, or if biodynamics make a difference. If you drink, try some biodynamic wine. Oh my, there is a difference. If you don't pick up on it, maybe it didn't work for you. But for me at least, oh yeah, it's amazing. It makes a difference. And then biodynamic produce, things that are grown biodynamically, to me personally, they look different. Like if I was at a farmer's market, I could spot it easily.
I had a girlfriend that did this and was really crazy. She would talk. I think she did this with, what was it, turnips or something? She would talk and tell, and she did this with her kids, and tell this one group of turnips how much they loved them. And when you opened up the turnip, there was actually a heart shape in the middle of that turnip. And on the other turnip, the other set of turnips, it wasn't there. I mean, and I talked to him. I mean, I named my cherry tree, and I talked to him, how are you doing, but I mean, they would literally just tell these plants how much they loved them, and that plant literally looked different, right? Here, we've been stuck for a really long time in mechanistic thinking, and it has its place, but I believe in a vitalistic world. I think that every single thing has a soul. And, you can talk to and communicate with anything. And look for a YouTube video. It's mind blowing, about the woman that saved the bee with one wing. Have you ever seen that?
Never seen it.
It's called The Woman and the Bee. I think it's A Woman and the Bee. It's on one of those, feel good animal, videos that which I'm a sucker for. And she sees this bee only has one wing, and she takes care of a bee. I wouldn't even think of that. I mean, I'm ashamed to say. And just this bee just hung out with her, and while she took care of it until it died, and she was really sad. When you see things like that, I mean, I'm running around saving worms. Not that I didn't do that, but I'm so mindful of all of it, and little ants don't step on that, and don't, everything has soul, everything. And we have to understand that. And who is the guy? Oh, I don't know. That's another conversation. We'll have to have another conversation about how it's all connected, and how we can tap into a prehistoric memory with that, all that Rupert Sheldrake and all that kind of stuff, and really tap into that, and how we can make that work for us.
We definitely will. No, I understand where you're coming from, and I definitely understand the lady with the bee with one wing, because especially when you realize the importance of bees, and you realize the importance of, for one thing, worms. So when it rains, I have to go out on worm patrol and talk to them all and scold them, get off the sidewalk. Why do you guys, I don't even know what you're doing. So I'm sitting here throwing worms back onto the lawn.
That's
because...
right.
Yeah, because they matter. Every little worm is a precious being.
That's right. Well, we took a vacation, one of our rare vacations last year, and we were in a swimming pool in Sedona, and the bees like to come down and drink the water, but then they start to drown. They get stuck, right? And I watched my husband, and he's walking around and he's flinging things, and he's saving bees who he doesn't want them to drown, And God bless him, And it's the, and you know what though? That's awareness, isn't it? That's
That
awareness.
is.
Aware of everything around us is living and breathing, right? And it's communicating, and it will communicate with you if it is communicating with you. You just have to be aware and know, and that awareness just grows exponentially, So I'm going to sound really woo woo here. I was sitting on my porch last night. I was exhausted. I've been working in the garden, and I could literally hear my cherry tree tell me she wanted crystals. It was so I could literally hear it. And my husband's background's in medicine. He was studying to be a heart surgeon. I mean, he's a brainiac, and he was in special forces as a medic. So my husband over the years has learned to walk into this world with me. But I turned to him, I said, I call her Cherry. I go, Cherry wants crystals. I said, we need to go put crystals over there. And he just accepts it now. He just, and he knows. He's been around it enough. He knows.
No, I understand. I understand. Yeah, I mean, if a person hasn't had the experience, then I would say definitely open up to it. At least have some house plants, because, our house is kind of a jungle. As many plants as you can stuff in it, and always working on more. More plants and more interesting, neat plants inside and such. And some plants go inside and they come outside. They go back and forth. But yeah, I hear them talk. I mean, especially one of the common things they'll say is water. Hey, over here, don't forget me, And you might ignore it and go, yeah, I'm busy doing something. And the next time you walk by, it's like, psst, hey, I need some water over here. Yeah. Well, it has been great talking to you. And, there's so many things we could talk about. Maybe we'll have to just do it again. And, the book that you are mentioned in, this one, the Power of Vibrational Medicine, Healing with the Bioacoustics of Nature, at the end of the book, you are mentioned, and your Psionic 3 is mentioned. How did that connection happen?
Well, Gretchen she teaches at the Quantum Institute. So really, she has an overview of medicine. She did her pre-med at University of Michigan, and then and she's a naturopath, herbalist, and homeopathic doctor, and she teaches homeopathics. She's brilliant, and she's my practitioner. We just hit it off the first time I saw her, and so when like I said, I had mentioned to her, I've got this music, boy, because I can't stand reason. Well, I'm a sound healer. Well, how do we know we're a sound healer? Let's prove it, right? I mean, really, let's prove it. Or it's just words, yeah, we can see it makes a difference. People tell us it makes a difference, but let's prove it. How can we do that? And so that's what I said to her. I said, I'd love to be able to prove it. She says, I can do it for you, as I mentioned before. And so that we worked on it together. And, our next thing now, it will be to we'd like to work between 30 and 50 people with PTS and see what a difference it makes. But we want to incorporate movement with it, with some Tai Chi, and we work with Sifu. He's a master. He's incredible. And so, in just basic movement and sound, and see what kind of a difference it makes. Because some of the people we worked with were on antidepressants the first time round, and they got off them, which was interesting. Believe me, we didn't see that coming. So psionic is just earth resonant. It's beautiful. It sounds celestial. It's not going to sound like sound healing music. That's electronic. And I'm here to tell you, electronics is not the way you want to do your sound for in a therapeutic way. For entertainment, fine, but it's one electronic note. It doesn't have harmonics in it. So, I mean, I walk away from that stuff. It doesn't sound real to me, and I want what is the most natural and the most, again, it's a bioacoustics of nature. I want that. So, that's how it came about. And we did not expect the results that we got. We just didn't expect it.
Well, I hope that one day the Psionic 3 can be bought on LP, on record. That'd be something.
Oh, wouldn't that just be great?
Yeah, I would. That'd be great. I think it's 27 minutes, so I think it would fit on one side. I think so.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that would be so nice.
That would be amazing.
If you listen to it, you get the most benefits by listening to it 2 times in a row. And the new one now that I have that I'm selling, physically selling, I don't know if it's actually available anywhere, but that it is now twice that long. That's what really will take you to that 90% and maybe more in coherence, is by listening to it twice in a row. That's what we found with the studies that we did.
Yeah, and I've listened to it. I can definitely endorse it. And I think also your body gets used to it. Your mind gets used to it. You start to expect it. And then it's kind of like a song that you possibly enjoy more than the first time you've heard it. And so I find that I look forward to the different parts in it. And you can start to crave it. It can be like when you want ice cream, you want Sonic.
Yeah, because remember what it's doing, and I didn't mention this, and let me say this and be done with it. The body tries to reset, the brain tries to reset to that frequency, 7.83 every 90 minutes. So with all the interference, it's a pretty tough thing for the brain to do. And also, every time we have I think it's lightning thunderstorm, I think that also is 7.83. I know the Earth is one's positive, one's negative, whatever I have in my notes. But anyway, so it's key to who we are and how we fit in to this reality, so being reset to where we're integrated into this reality is really key, right? Everybody wants to get out of this reality. Oh, we're in the 4th dimension. If we were in the 4th dimension, we'd be in the 4th dimension. Right now, we're in the 3rd dimension. And I can feel that we're getting yanked. I mean, we can all feel it. We all kind of have headaches and our ears are ringing and our bodies are achy and everybody's feeling that. But we're still here and we're still with our mother and she is resonating that. And yes, I know she fluctuates, but that is the basis of this reality. And you want to be healthy as you're living within this. And so that is the reason for it, because a lot of people are feeling really disconnected.
Yeah, it's funny. There's so much talk of, well, I'm really a Pleiadian and I'm a starseed and this and that. It's not my home. And I feel that that's the same as millennial vocal fry. It's just a way to remove you from experiencing life. It's another, ride the dolphin into your life purpose. No, you won't. You'll probably, fight a monster to your life purpose. It's just not going to work that way. And as far as being in the 4th dimension or the 5th dimension, you'll know when you're there and we can feel it. And I would say that it's also sort of, people are trying to give themselves a free pass too often.
That's right.
They'll just say, well, you ever notice how everybody who's like, I'm not going to call it self-aware, but new agey, I'm going to call it that. Why are they all healers?
Yeah, right.
They're all healers, and they just decide, I'm a healer. I'm already enlightened. I did all my work. I'm just here to blog and enlighten everybody. And it's like, no, you don't. You can say that, but you're so full of shit. It's obvious, and if you're not getting anywhere, you're just riding the dolphin, and it's just going in circles.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's I don't. As soon as somebody wants to do an angel card reading for me, I'm out the door. I mean, it's, and again, I'm a Detroiter. I spent my life in the blues. I'm pretty grounded, And I came in as an indigo in the early 50s, 1951, and that was no picnic. Because I've spent a lifetime not wanting to be in my body. And finally, in the last few years, I want to be in my body. I want to be here more than anything. And that was a lifetime of pain of not wanting to be here. So this whole I really don't belong here. Well, I got news for you. I really didn't belong here. And I had to find a way of wanting to be here, and I go back to the Stones, to the Stone people. I mean, I go way back. I've been here a lot. And so it was really painful this time around. I think a lot of us came in, we were needed. Well, we were all needed. I don't want to put myself above anybody else, but I mean, I definitely thought I was needed here. I was told I was needed here. And then it took me a lifetime to really believe I'm needed here. And not until my 60s. And now I love it. I don't want to leave. This is great. I found my place. I found so many people that I resonate with, and it's been an amazing journey.
And that's definitely what it should be, especially, sometimes the longer it takes us to get there, to get started, the better, because it's all the better, That's right. Definitely. Well, it's been amazing talking to you today, and definitely everybody get The Power of Vibrational Medicine, Healing with the Bioacoustics of Nature by Gretchen Wagner Schnell, PhD. It'll be in the show notes, of course. Get Kate's music, Psionic 3, great place to start, followed by Spinal Cord of God. That was a great one. And then the one you've got, Transformation, and I'll link all those, and really rock out. I've listened to them, and especially Psionic 3, it does something for me. It's essential. It can definitely help with the, when you're feeling that fourth dimensional yank, get you kind of nauseous, boom. I got a remedy for you. That, and, biodynamic wine helps too, but that's just me. I don't want to recommend that to everyone.
Well, I take C60. So.
Oh, and C60 is definitely helpful. We didn't go into that this show, but definitely it's something that I'm going to get into also. And as we wrap things up, people should do a session with you, to find their core voice. I need to also. How can people get a hold of you?
Just Kate Hart at speakeasy.net.
Just send you a note. Perfect. And of course, in the show notes, I'll have all of your social media linked.
Thanks.
Everything except your email, because it's on your site. I don't want to increase your spam content. So, Kate Hart, thanks for being on Radiant Creators. This was great. I hope we do it again. There's no way to get everything that you do and are in one show, but this was a great start.
Well, this was fun. Thank you so much for having me and thinking enough of me to interview me. It means a lot. Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks for thinking enough of us to bother with us, because it means a lot too. Take care.
Okay, honey. You too.
Thanks for listening to Radiant Creators. Check out more content at radiantcreators.com. If you like the show, give it a like. Share this. Comment. Keep the conversation going. You can also find us at alternatecurrentradio.com, where there's this show and a lot more.